So it's been widely covered everywhere that many Canadian snowbirds are not going to the United States anymore, and quite a few of them have actually sold their properties. Sure, we've heard from like snowbird advisors and snowbird associates that many of their members are still going. I mean, sure, your members are still going because they have incentives to go, but I'm not sure their organizations represents the entire snowbird industry. But in this video, I'm going to share a conversation that I had with a Canadian snowbird who used to go to Arizona, but has since sold his property and is now living in Spain. I previously did an interview with D, and back then when we did the interview, I think it was, I can't remember. But at that point, I believe he was considering Spain as one of the top destinations for him to relocate to. But now, he's finally settled in, and he's going to share with everybody how life in Spain is completely different than it is in Arizona. So I hope everybody enjoys the conversation. And if there are any Canadian snowbirds listening to this right now, you're going to want to listen to this one. I'm really happy to talk to you again because the last time we talked and you did an interview with me, you previously sold your home in Arizona. So, I'm happy to hear that you're having a great time in Spain. So, welcome back. And, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's really nice to talk to you again, Mr. GTL. It's a pleasure. And we are in Spain, and we are doing pretty well here.
That's good to hear. And you told me offline that the weather is not as hot as it should be, but it's still better than, I guess, the winters in Canada, right?
That's absolutely true. Yeah, it's a nice place. I wear shorts here all the time. It doesn't bother me.
So I'm doing the same thing over here too in Malaysia. And it's funny story is I just finished playing tour guide for some of my friends in Canada that came over to visit, and they're actually liking the shorts and t-shirt, but they're at that point where they're like, okay, it's a little too hot for us, so they're actually ready to go back. So
yeah, but it's really humid.
Yeah,
it's really humid there. Yeah.
I mean, the humidity is about 60. It bounces anywhere from like 60 to, I guess, 80%. So it does get a little bit humid here. So, but yeah. What I wanted to do is I actually wanted to catch up with you and find out how life is in Spain. I mean, you've been a snowbird in Arizona for quite a few years, and this is just a recap for the viewers who haven't watched our previous interview. But Dee was previously living in Arizona as a snowbird. And I believe just before the orange guy came into office, you decided to sell. Is that correct?
It was actually after his election, and it was when he started doing the 51st state rhetoric. That's when it caught my eye and ear, and also the tariffs and the aggressive way in which he was going to apply tariffs. And I thought, okay, I think our days are numbered here. So yeah, that's when I listed it pretty much in early February last year, a year ago. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely ahead of the curve of a lot of people because there's a lot of snowbirds right now that are still trying to sell their properties in either Arizona or Florida, and they're not able to. It's just there's just nobody buying, right? So
no, exactly.
Yeah, but now that you're done with the U.S. and you're now in Spain, what's your daily life like, and how are you comparing it to your time in Arizona?
Well, it's very comfortable here. I find it considerably more. I had a wonderful time in Arizona, and I had wonderful friends in Arizona. But given what's happened over the last year or so, this is much more relaxed than it would be in Arizona right now. And it didn't take very long to feel comfortable here. We were here last year, so we still had our place in Arizona, and we came here anyway, and then we went back to Arizona to clean up the sale. But last year when we were here, it was kind of an overview of things. And this year we're doing more things in detail. We've gone away and stayed in Cordoba for a couple of nights. And last year we did stay in Seville for a night. And we're going to Cadiz tomorrow, actually. And
nice.
So we're doing more things like that. And it feels more like we're living here. And there's a lot of Canadians. There's about 20 of us that are in the same neighborhood. And last night we played trivia at a British pub, and there was 18 of us at the table. So
wow.
So there's a lot of people, a lot of Canadians around, and we've connected with some locals. There's a wonderful gal who has organized a Spanish conversational group, and it's supposed to be Spanish people listening to English and English people listening to Spanish and learning the languages that way. But what invariably happens is that the the English speakers speak English the whole time. And anyway, it's a lot of fun, and it's really nice to get snapshots of the culture from these the Spanish people that we converse with.
That's good. That's good. And I mean, I guess being in Spain and in Europe as well, there's all those little neighboring countries that you can go to easily, right? So,
Mm.
have you done any traveling to like any other countries or?
No, we didn't. We were going to do that this year, but we kind of ran out of time. We're going to go to Portugal. I have a buddy who's about 4 hours away in the
Nice.
Algarve, and he's been going there for as long as I've been going to Arizona. So
Mhm.
we were going to go visit him, but we never did get there. Maybe next year.
Got it. Question: do you still keep in touch with some of the people that your friends in Arizona, or have you kind of moved on? Or
Well, I try to reach out to them. We used to spend Christmas and Easter with them at
Mhm.
somebody's house, and so on Christmas we had a nice FaceTime call with them, and American Thanksgiving we did the same. I suspect Easter next week or a couple of weeks from now we'll do the same thing, but the contact is we used to see them every day, of course, but now it's few. It's just more in between times. But I look forward to talking to them again on Easter, and they're just wonderful people. And for what it's worth, I think I mentioned at the last interview that um, we never spoke about politics with them,
right.
never. And I strongly suspect that there's a couple of the two of the couples anyway are pretty ardent Trump supporters, but it was never relevant in our relationship, and we had great relationships with our friends. And
Mhm.
I'm so glad that the toxicity of the politics was not allowed to enter. Didn't bring it up. We didn't bring it up, and
Mhm.
I really appreciated that.
Mhm. Well, that's good. I mean, when it comes to friendships, right? There's certain things that people value, and valuing the friendship, keeping politics out of it is one thing, right? I do have a friend in the United States. He is a Orange Guy supporter, unfortunately,
Mhm.
but we've run a level where he understands what's going on, and but we're still able to be on a friendship level, amicably, right? But there are some that I know that I lost contact with, and it's unfortunate because they've gone really far on the right side. So I think when it comes to friendships and stuff like that, and even family too, right? It's good that you're still able to be on a level with them, despite the political differences. So
Yeah, for sure. That's
yeah,
exactly right. I value their friendships very much.
yeah. Well, one of the things, I mean, you did mention this to me offline, and it's actually a pretty hot topic right now because not sure if you saw my previous video, but there was that one mega woman who decided to go to Ireland, and she didn't get the reception that she was expecting, right?
Right.
You're overseas right now, and you're in Europe. I mean, have you had any, I guess, run-ins with U.S. citizens in the area?
We haven't seen many Americans here this year.
Hmm.
Last year we saw a few, and the first words out of their mouths were, "I'm so sorry," because the whole nonsense had happened with tariffs and 51st State by that point. This year I only had one sort of encounter. We were on a tour of a local goat farm, which was a very
Hmm.
cool thing, and we ended up making our own cheese that day and all that, and it was really very interesting. But there was, let's see, there's probably about 12 of us there, and there were 8 Canadians, including a couple of guys from the military who were on a leave
Right.
on a holiday, and then there was a family of Americans, and I didn't really notice them much, other than the guy was wearing a Baltimore T-shirt, so a sweatshirt, but the other they're clearly Americans, and
Hmm.
that was fine, and didn't have much interaction with them. And then one of the things that we did at the goat farm is they gave us a talk before, and they took us
Hmm.
into the barn, and we milked. Everybody got a chance to milk one of the goats.
Right.
So I was standing in line, and there's a couple of people were ahead of me, as it turns out, and they went ahead. And then started to step forward, and the American woman, the mother, she jumped in front of me and pushed me out of the way. Uh, and I thought, my goodness me, am I missing something here? Did she just actually do that? And my partner's, I commented to my partner after. I said, "Did you see that?" She says, "Yeah, I did see that." And so, yeah, that's what this woman did. And her kids were there. They were 20 somethings, and they were really nice kids. But the father and the mother, I don't know. If I never see them again, it'll be too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, unfortunately, I don't want to upset any of my US viewers, but it is common. I mean, I've had incidents in the past where, it's just how do I say it? It's the tone, I guess, and the demanding and things like that. I mean, I was traveling overseas on my first stint, and I was at a shop, and a US citizen was just complaining to the manager that, hey, why aren't you accepting my US dollar, right? And
Yeah, right.
obviously, shops are not going to accept the US dollar. They're going to accept their local currency. And, the person had the audacity to say, hey, everybody wants the US dollar. Why aren't you taking it? Right. So,
Yeah.
but I am glad the shop decided, to hold their ground, say, no, we're not going to accept the US dollar. Right. But,
No.
yeah, but
No.
I know it's not everyone. I mean, I've been in situations just like you. I mean, I've explained one on my channel before where, I met a U.S. Couple, an older couple, and they basically apologized once they found out I was Canadian, right? So,
Yeah.
I think we got to consider that as well. That it's not all U.S. citizens, but unfortunately, there you got some bad apples that are, not making the U.S. image very good right now. So.
No, most of the people that I know are like my friends
Yeah.
in Arizona. I mean, this one just kind of jumped out and bit me for whatever reason, but there are wonderful people that live all over the world. There are wonderful people in Canada, and there's wonderful people in the United States. And
Mhm.
this is not everybody, but there are the apples do tend to stick out a little bit sometime,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
No,
Yeah.
I totally agree. I do have a question for you. I mean, now it seems like a lot of snowbirds are heading to Europe, Asia, wherever else. My question for you is like, how are the locals handling it in Spain? I mean, are they obviously there's going to be an influx of new tourists, but then also snowbirds as well. I mean, are they welcoming snowbirds in, or is it one of those situations where it's like too many tourists?
Well, where we are, it's the sunny coast of the Mediterranean, the south of the continent, and it's the people here in the winter are from away. The
Mhm.
it's come down here, in months, and they spend good part of the summer down here. So there's not many Europeans or Spanish visitors here now. So everybody else is away,
Right.
and the Spanish people, they are in the trade, and but there's more to it than that. They're just I find them incredibly welcoming and generous, and they really appreciate an effort to speak their language. I embarrass myself mostly every time, but they are really gracious. One of the things
Mhm.
that I find really interesting is that when they're very respectful with pedestrians on the road, like there's little crosswalks and stuff, and they aren't marked like they are in Canada with big signs and flashing lights. They're just a broken white line on the road, and you
Right.
cross this thing, and they're very respectful. It's the rules of the road, of course, but they're
Uh-huh.
very respectful of pedestrians. And I always wave at them, and they wave
Yeah,
right back
that's
all the
good.
time. And on the street, if you're walking by people on the street going to the market or whatever, you there is. I don't think I don't think it happens at all that people haven't said "hola" to me and me to them,
Mhm.
and that'll be the greeting is always is "hola," and then they'll hear the tone of they'll hear your voice, and they'll go, "Oh, how are you doing?" They'll speak in English because they know you're not Spanish. But I find that the people remarkably kind and generous, and the service itself, the food industry, the waiters and stuff are just terrific.
That's good. Good to hear. How's the cost of living there compared to Arizona? If you're talking about like groceries, restaurants, rent, and things like that, like, are you getting better value in Arizona, not Arizona, or in Spain than you did in Arizona?
Yes, I think so. It's not as good as it was last year. Last year was it was shockingly good. This
Mhm.
year, I think it's gone up a bit here in certain ways, but our groceries are last year they were about a third of the cost they were in Canada. Our groceries, and it's a little more expensive now. I'd say maybe it's half of what we pay, but the product of the quality of the goods is second to none. The vegetables are all grown all year round. Tomatoes are grown all year around outside, not hydroponically or in greenhouses. And it's just great produce. The bread, I can't believe the bread here. It's
Mhm.
about the best bread I've ever had, ever. And I think it's to do with the kind of grain they use. They use a less processed white flour. And the yeasts are different, I suppose, but the breads here, and you don't get a bad piece of bread here. It's
Right.
really terrific. Fish is and a loaf of bread, a big loaf of artisan like bread is €1. So
Mhm.
that's like $1.60 Canadian for this gigantic piece of bread, where you'd pay for something smaller and at home, an artisan bakery would be paying $7, $8 for a loaf of
Right.
bread like that. The fish, there's fishmongers in the grocery stores, and that fish was caught that day,
Mhm.
and is sitting on the counter, and on ice there. Coffee pods, coffee is just ridiculously cheap here.
Mhm.
I think it's 75% less than coffee in Canada.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and yeah, one of the other things that's kind of interesting too is this is just maybe a style and cultural thing, but some cities in Canada now they have a pass, a tap pass, and that
Mhm.
pass will entitle you to a free transfer within a period of time, an hour or two or three or whatever. But here, if you get on a bus here or something that's moving you from place A to place B, either at a tourist site or something like that, that fare is for the day. You pay,
Wow.
and it's next to nothing. It's
Mhm.
like a euro or two, and it pays for the entire day rather than just a 2 hour transfer
Right.
back home.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
cool. It sounds like it's transportation, food, everything seems to be a lot better than what it was in Arizona. And I mean, the food is probably a lot more healthier too, less chemicals, I guess, and stuff like that. So, um,
Mhm.
you know, when you compare Arizona to where you are now, is there anything in Arizona that you miss, or is it been like a night and day situation for you?
Well, yeah, my friends, I
Yeah.
miss them terribly. There was a couple of really great restaurants I enjoyed, where we live in Arizona. And the restaurant prices in Arizona are like prices in a big city in Canada. And so I miss the great restaurant that we would go to. But
Hmm.
other than that, no,
That's
it's
good.
it's I really really like it here. We
Nice.
both really like it here very much.
It sounds like you guys are having a great time over there. And one of the things you mentioned earlier is that you there's a lot of Canadians there as well, right? So, um, like the shift in Canadians, are you noticing that a lot of the fellow Canadians that you're meeting there, were they previous snowbirds in the U.S. as well that migrated, or are they like a mix of new snowbirds, or like what's? I guess what I'm trying to say is what is the sentiment of, I guess, from the other Canadians that you're meeting?
Well, some of them were snowbirds. The reason we came here is one of our friends was here and had been here for some time, 7, 10 years or whatever, and
Mhm.
they really got the lay of the land, and they kind of introduced us. And then, so we're part of that group. We have an instant community in Arizona. We developed a community of neighbors and friends, and going to events and stuff. You'd meet people, and that's why we had our wonderful group there. But here
Right.
it's kind of built in, and Canadians, there's like I think I said earlier, it was 20 Canadians last night
Mhm.
at trivia, and that group gets bigger every year. And it came from it sprouted from the folks that were here 10 years ago, and
Mhm.
it's grown, and they added people, and then those people have added people, and
Nice.
So in our little world here, Canadians are multiplying like rabbits, I'd say.
Nice. Interesting.
Mhm.
Because the reason I ask this question is because I've done a few reports in the past where the Snowbird Association or Snowbird Advisors or whatever, and they're, they seem to be giving the message that there's still a lot of their members that are going to the US, right? But personally, I just feel that, okay, maybe their members are going, but it doesn't reflect the overall snowboard community, right? So I guess, you being a snowbird yourself, what's your take on these snowbird associations or advisors saying that there's still a lot of snowbirds going to the US? Do you feel that's true, or do you feel that it's only representing their organizations?
Well, I think the answer is somewhere in between. I really don't know but if the snowbirds are still going to the United States. I hope they aren't, but
Yeah.
people inertia is a really hard thing to change, and regular behavior is very difficult to change.
Yeah.
And if they went to Florida every year and they had a good time and they never had an encounter with any, an unpleasant encounter with whoever, law enforcement or whoever, they're going to go back. And
Right.
that's, it works for them. That's great. Good on them. But there are a lot of people who are very aware that it's not the same place. And
Right.
that, and as you've shown in some of your videos, the British woman, I think it was in one of your videos, a British woman and her husband, they left the U.S. and they went back to Canada, but they had to return their car or something. They went back across
Yeah.
the border. And that woman was she was in captivity for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
A woman in her sixties, seventies. Like if that happens once, that's
Mhm.
unbelievably wrong. That would
Yeah.
happen even once, and it happens more than once.
Yeah,
So
for
if
sure.
people haven't been burned, they're enjoying their comfort zone. Well, good on them. But I wouldn't want to. I would not want to be there for a minute. I don't feel safe being there. I don't feel safe crossing the border.
Hmm.
Like you're walking around and you're seeing armed soldiers,
Yeah.
arresting people at will. And
Yeah.
I mean, how can that be a safe situation for a foreign national?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, some people have different tolerances, I guess, but at the same time as
Mm.
well, I mean, for me, it's principle as well. But, I think a lot of people that are still going, they're going to have to unfortunately go through an incident, south of the border in order for them to kind of realize, okay, maybe it isn't safe for us to go there. So,
Hmm.
um, now it's been on the news, and I actually haven't reported it on my channel yet. But I read somewhere that especially with all the stuff going on in the Middle East right now, I did read that Spain has denied the U.S. Access to their, I guess, I don't know, maybe their air bases and things like that. But is that a big story going on in Spain at the moment?
Yeah, it is a pretty big story, and the Spanish people are really proud of their prime minister for saying no, you can't use our bases. No,
Right.
and then of course the Orange Monster carried on and threatened them with tariffs and stuff, but. He's such a fool sometimes that you can't do that. Spain is part of the EU, and you can't pick a country and tariff them that you end up tariffing the whole economic union. And they of course they tacoed and he backtracked and they said that the Spanish are letting them use their bases, which just wasn't true. And then it was when that story came back and the Spanish people said that no, that's not true. That we're not letting them use our bases. And the prime minister said, "We are not allowing a country who are fighting an illegal war to use our territory." Period.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that because the last I read on it is that they backtracked and allowed the U.S. to use their airbase. So I
No,
didn't
no,
know
that
that.
it did not. That did not happen. That's United
Wow.
States propaganda. That's
Oh,
right.
well, looks like I fell for the propaganda because actually thought that Spain backtracked on it. But
No, they
I'm
did
glad you
not.
mentioned that. I'm going to have to research that a little bit more, and I might have to
Yeah,
actually do
yeah,
a video on it. Right. So,
yeah.
but it's good to hear that the people in Spain are putting their foot down, right? And
They
um,
are.
you know, I I commend them for that. And, I have to read up on this a little bit more too, because I actually thought they retracted. But
No,
so another thing I wanted to talk about, because you and I were talking about this offline, is that you did have an that had an was CBP. And I feel that it is important to kind of share. So are you able to give a little bit of details on that?
sure. I know tons about it, but this is a colleague of mine who was born in Canada to American parents,
Hmm.
and she married a citizen who's now a Canadian citizen, and they went to the States to visit, I think, his mother or something like that, family anyway. And
Hmm.
they got to the border, and there was a misdemeanor on his file from when he was like 20. He was caught in possession of marijuana.
Hmm.
And that, like, I mean, this is in his 60s now for sure.
Hmm.
And so 40 years, 45 years ago, he got caught with marijuana. Well, they turned them away and they said, don't come back because if you do, we'll arrest you.
Wow. So
Yeah.
it, the reason why I wanted to share that is, I mean, there may be a lot of Canadians that used to be able to go to the US, and, they may have misdemeanors or something on the record, but, it happened like dozens of years ago. But the reason why I wanted to share this with the community is because we're talking about something that happened 45 years ago, right? And, I think any Canadian that's still considering going, if you have any sort of minor record or a misdemeanor or something,
Hmm.
you should keep that in mind if you're going to be approaching the U.S. border. So,
And
um,
of him in that story as well, these were two naturalized Americans. One was born in the United States, the other one was born of American parents in Canada. They were both American citizens, and they were told, don't come back.
oh wait, so they hold passports, but they're told not to come back.
That's right.
Wow.
They
Okay,
they
that's
hold
that's
both they hold both passports, but they
right.
were
Right.
told not to come back. Yeah, that's right.
Is that allowed? Because I mean, if you're, I mean, I don't, I'm an immigration lawyer or anything, right? But I thought if you're a citizen of the country, you have a right to go back into your own
You
country.
no, you can go back, but they said if you come back, we'll arrest you.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I guess all the reason to kind of avoid if you have any sort of minor record, no matter how far back it goes. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. So, one more question before we close. I mean, it sounds like you're having a great time in Spain, and
Mhm,
you've the United States, but there still are a lot of snowbirds that are trying to the United States, right? I've
yeah.
received quite a few emails from snowbirds saying that, look, we follow your channel, but I think we're trying to get out, but we can't because we can't sell, right? So what's your advice to any Canadian snowbirds right now that are, trying to decide whether to sell or, get out? Like, you've already gone through the process, but do you have any advice for the snowbirds that might be listening?
Well, in my opinion, owning and continuing to hold a vacation property in the United States is just pure folly. I think it's a really bad economic decision, and I think it's a bad decision for safety. And it's getting harder and harder to sell. Like you said at the beginning, we were at the edge of this move to sell, and we managed to get rid of our place in 30 days, which was the average time for a house
Mhm.
on the market. And we actually did fairly well, on the because it was bought, 8 9 years ago, and we actually
Right.
did really really quite well. And so I mean, but I'm doing well I paid $52,000 place when I bought it 7 8 years ago. That was
Wow.
because they were at the tail end of the real estate 2008. They hadn't
Right.
recovered yet. So anyway, we got a reasonable amount for it, and that cash has really been a real gift and blessing to us because we can now go elsewhere and spend that money
Hmm.
elsewhere. And we've treated ourselves to a business class seat. Once,
Nice.
and that's something we would have considered doing before, but because the cash was there, we were lucky to have it. We indulged ourselves, but I think that what was I going to say here? I think the decision to sell was really one of the real estate decisions I've ever made, and it was the only decision to make for personal safety in
Yeah.
my how I feel.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, I guess there's not a lot of, advice we can give to snowbirds because if you ask me, that window to sell has passed and it's going to be very tough from this point forward, to try to sell your property. I did have one person email me saying that they did property probably about a month ago, but at a loss. So, it's unfortunate, but I think hopefully the snowbirds that are still on the fence, they make a decision because I agree with you. I mean, I think holding a U.S. property in the long run might not be a good idea, but at the same time as well, we don't know if the orange guy is going to create some sort of executive, order or something that might have to do with foreign property, right? So that's something I would be my own property in the U.S. So
I would too. That was one of my concerns back when we listed that nothing preventing him from signing an executive order taxing the sale of property owned by foreign nationals by 100%.
yeah,
Why wouldn't he do that? They
yeah,
haven't figured that one out yet. I think that's the only reason that hasn't happened. And
yeah,
another thought on selling. I think it's a really hard choice. It's an individual choice for different people in different situations and different states of ownership. But take the loss, eat
mhm,
it, get out. You'll be happy. You'll be happy and safer. Just get out. I couldn't be stronger on my feeling on that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's for some people to take a loss, but
Hmm.
you
Oh
also
yeah.
have to figure, the longer you hold, I don't think this situation's gonna get any better. So okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you again, Dee. And, I'm very happy to hear that everything's going well in Spain. And, keep me posted on how things are going. If there's any changes, if there's any updates, you can always send me an email and I'll be happy to jump on another call with you.
Will do. Thanks. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, you as well. And yeah, keep in touch.
Okay. Take care.